Welcome back, fellow Illumineers, to be our guest. Oh, we're rocking and rolling now. Now is the sweet time. We got rid of the one-drop video. We got through that. We trudged our way along, and now we're into the good stuff. We're doing our two-drop set review for Lorcana Winterspell, specifically for Limited, for Sealed and Draft. And I got a treat for you today. You see him already there. We got Liam here from the Illumineers. That is a get. If I might say so myself, that is a pretty good get. Liam, how you doing?
You're way too kind. I'm doing very well. I'm super excited to be here. Fans of my watching for years may know that you were one of our very first guests on our show like 2 years ago. So it is such an honor to be here chatting with you about Winterspell. And I'm excited. I'm excited to do it.
Very, very cool. I mean, I don't think it's being too modest for you to say that you are kind of the voice of Lorcana at this point. The face and the voice of Lorcana. You may disagree. I'm not going to give you the opportunity to disagree. But that's how I feel, at least. So I'm super excited to have you here. And I know you've got a little bit of history of playing limited formats yourself. Why don't you tell the people a little bit about your journey through Limited?
Yeah, I mean, I'm like many people, I'm a longtime TCG player. I've been playing, really Magic was my entrance to TCGs. I've been playing that since the 90s. Took a break for a while, came back, but Limited has always been actually my favorite way to play. I love like we used to be Type 1, Type 2 in Magic. I love Constructed, but there's something about Limited that is just liberating. And offers you several different games within one play section. It's the deck construction combined with the problem solving of this limited pool of cards, plus then the actual gameplay that to me is really refreshing. So I love Limited in Magic. Draft is probably my favorite way to play. And I will admit I haven't gotten to play as much in Lorcana because it just isn't supported as much as I think many of us would like. But I'm super excited anytime I get to play with a limited pool of cards.
Awesome. You heard it here first, Ravensburger. We need more limited support. We need more limited gameplay. More opportunities to do it competitively, maybe? Yeah. All right.
Fun.
Well, let's get to it. Sorry, yeah. It's fun. I like it. That is the word. It is fun. Absolutely. All right. Well, let's get into it. We're doing our two-drop set review today. I'm going to cut it over to past Heath to tell you a little bit about how we're reviewing the cards today, and then we'll dive right into it. Take it away, Heath. All right, so what are we talking about in terms of these rating systems? How are we rating these cards today? We're talking about a scale from A through F. I'm going to be giving plus or minuses for A through C to give a little bit of nuance, a little bit of leveling to it, but we're going to be talking about A through F. I'm going to be speaking to these in terms of draft picks, but for my sealed brethren, I want you to think about this and interpret this as what are my auto includes when I see them in my pool, down to what are the cards that I might want to be cutting from my sealed pool. A picks are going to be your bombs. First pick, you see it in a pack, you're slamming it down. You're really lucky if you see more than one of these in a pack because they're so slim. Most sets have 5, maybe 6 of these in the entire set. These are the cards that you may end up wanting to build your whole deck around because they're so impactful. Your Bs are your foundation of a winning deck. Yes, the bombs are more powerful, but again, they're few and far between. So really, it's the Bs that you're relying on to build a winning deck. You might even say that you can look at a deck and see how it's going to perform based on the number of Bs. These are your solid removal, your solid characters, the things that are going to impact the game heavily, but maybe don't rise to the level of a bomb. These you're going to want to find in your first 4 picks. There are some sets where these are slim enough that you're probably talking realistically top 2 or 3 picks, but hopefully you can find these in your top 4 picks. All right, your C are your filler cards, from the top C plus being highly playable down to C minus being I might want to cut these cards. These are your role players. These are the cards that, okay, maybe they're probably not drawing a card, they're probably not removal unless it's really bad removal. These are your role players. These are the subpar vanillas. These are your average bodyguards like we see here. These are the type of cards that you're gonna play in your deck, but you're hoping to slim these down as much as possible. Your D cards are the cards you're hoping not to include in your deck. These are the cards you're gonna find at the end of the pack. These are the cards that ideally are going to be inkable, because if they are sync to the level of being this bad and they're uninkable, they should probably just be F. These are typically the cards that I refer to as being niche playable. 10% of the time they might do something very effective, 5% of the time they might be great, but the rest of the time you just want to ink them. Which leaves our F, which is your uninkable, just trash. Stay far away from these. Don't even look at them. Typically, these are going to be your high-cost uninkables that might just rot in your hand for the entirety of the game and aren't significant enough to be worth the risk, right? So stay far away from these. Burn them on sight. And we're back, just like magic. Well said, Heath. Those Fs are truly garbage.
Really great, that guy.
All right. So we're going to bounce it back and forth between Liam and I. We're going to read through these cards and tell you a little bit about how we feel about them. Liam, why don't you start us off with a dear fan favorite, Little Old Pudge.
All right. Well, as I get into Pudge, I'll read him in just a second here. Here's my caveats starting up. You got past Heath. This is present Liam. I am going into this cold. I have not done, I've looked at all the cards, but I have not done my own limited assessment. So I'm going to be coming up with these, and I can't wait to discuss each one of them with you. Also, I'm going to need a card or two to calibrate. So you're starting off with a hard one here. Pudge is so good and constructed. This is a inkable card. It's a 1/3, and the fun thing about Pudge is if you have a character named Lilo in play, you get to play him for free, and as we know in TCGs, free is pretty good. Now that he does quest for 1. So this is an interesting card in Limited. I really, really like him in Constructed, and a lot of people say that he's one of the best cards in the set, at least in the top 3, but the catch for me here is the fact that you're getting a fairly standard 1-drop stat line, 1/3 with 1 lore for 2, and only getting that benefit if you find a Lilo in your sealed pool. So I'll be frank, I think this card is great in Constructed. I think it's probably a C for me if I had to throw it out there. Again, not having calibrated anything, just because I don't know the stats, and I can't wait for you to tell me what the stats are of finding a Lilo. But if you don't find that Lilo, and even if you only have 1 in your deck, you're not going to get that payoff. And it just means that it's an understated 2 cost for me.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like this is the perfect card as an example of the difference between assessing a card for Constructed and for Limited. Couldn't agree more. I've got it as a D because for me, this is the quintessential card of most of the time I'm going to want to ink this. But maybe every once in a while, 10% of the time, I might actually be able to get some good value out of this. So, somewhere between a C and a D.
I'll agree with you on a D, to be quite honest. It's even, the thing with Limited too is even if you find a Lilo, you probably are finding 1. If you're lucky, you're finding 2. And even then, the payoff isn't that big. Getting it for free is good, but it's not game breaking. Yeah,
really, you're kind of saving 1 ink, like you said, on the 1/3 stat body, which a 1 cost 1/3 isn't particularly exciting either. So, but it's a body that quests for lore, and it's inkable. So it's not all bad. All right, we got David, Protective Snowboarder. He's an inkable 1/4, 1 lore with Bodyguard. If any of you have checked out my videos before, you know that I'm a fan of Bodyguard. I'm getting less excited about the 2-cost Bodyguards, just because the vanilla stat bodies are getting stronger the last couple of sets, so they don't hold off very much anymore. That being said, even as a temporary speed bump to potentially distract your opponent's characters for a turn to maybe get a little bit more questing out of your strongest questers, is still worth including in the deck. So I've got this as a C. It's a playable card. You're gonna have it in your deck. It's just not necessarily lighting the world on fire.
Yeah, I was going to say a high C on this. It does give you some utility, and even if it doesn't stand, because usually you think of these bodyguards, you think of dropping high lore characters out, then you're dropping a bodyguard to protect them. In this case, in the early game, if you're playing aggro, he's perhaps with a 4 stat line on turn 2, something you could quest with twice, aggressively as well. So a little bit of utility. It's something I wouldn't mind playing, but I agree with everything you said.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. And this is what's great is I make my assessments beforehand, but this is very much kind of a live tier list. So as we go through, we'll have a little bit of debate as, is this above David, below David? So
I reserve the right to go back and change any of my previous rankings throughout this video.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Take it away with our next constructed beast.
My goodness, you're hitting all the crazy ones up front here in Amber. Amber is the fantastic color to start with.
Amber did pretty well for themselves.
Yeah, Amber, this Grandmother Willow is an uninkable 2-cost 1/2 that quests for 1, but her ability, pretty bonkers. Smooth Way says, once during your turn, you may pay 1 ink less for the next character you play this turn. This card is a bomb in Constructed. I wouldn't necessarily call it a bomb in Limited, but it's pretty good. This is a card that I would definitely want to establish on turn 2. The thing in this format is there's, and in any limited format, there's generally not a lot of removal. There's generally very limited amount of removal. And so when you have a card that can sit back and give you a passive ability for the whole game, that's pretty good. And basically this card saves you card draw later because it makes everything cheaper every single turn. And so it gives you card advantage in a unique kind of way. I love this card. I mean, I'll put it as an A. I would take it every single time if I were passed in a draft cube or a draft. And yeah, I'll put it as an A. That's where I'm at with it.
Okay. Wow. See, I was like right there with you right until you got to the grade.
Oh,
I'm like, everything you're saying aligns with what I'm thinking. It's just we're calibrating. We're calibrating. So let me tell you why I don't think it's necessarily an A, but why I agree with everything you say, which is to say that first of all, A for me is like first pick. Like, I'm equating this to like Ursula Vanessa in the last set is an A.
Okay.
Right? I would equate this to a slightly cheaper Mickey Detective. Right? Detective Mickey from the last set, 3 cost uninkable, 1/3, and you get to ramp for free. Because in Limited, almost all of our cards are characters, this is effectively working in the same way. It's a 2 cost 1/2 instead of a 3 cost 1/3. So I think you could put them as relatively equivalent. I would maybe say Grandmother Willow is a little bit better than that. I had Detective Mickey at like a C to C plus last set, and I think that held out to be about where you should be taking it. So I would put Grandmother Willow probably in that C plus territory, maybe B minus, but somewhere in that territory.
I will concede to a B. I think it's a B.
We're compromising.
I like your Mickey comparison. The nice thing about this card is if you establish it, it gives you benefit for the rest of the game. And there are some big bombs in this set. There's some cards you're going to talk about in some of your later videos where if you can get them early, they're very, very, very good. The one drawback, then this is a fun thing to talk about for people who are new to Limited. The one drawback to the card is that it is uninkable. And so drawing this card in the late game, it's not great. You have to play it. You can't ink it. But in Limited, your deck size is smaller. And so mathematically, if you're drawing for and altering hard for a card that you want in the early game, your chances of finding it are a lot higher. And obviously, this card is the best when you can establish it on turn 2. And so you do have a pretty good chance to find it if you want to alter hard for it.
Yeah. And this is where, much like in Constructed, so again, our assessment of Constructed and Limited is different, but much like Constructed, for me, in Limited, I don't like Lantern, I don't like One Jump Ahead, because you're spending a card and all you're doing is getting slightly further ahead. You're not gaining a card like we were talking about, with Grandmother Willow, we don't have to ink as far. I get that, but we're still not necessarily gaining a card. We're staying at card parity and not getting much else. But with this, we're getting that extra advantage of the ink savings while also having a body. And especially in this set, that's not irrelevant considering we've got the card draw. I can't remember the 4-cost card draw. So that could come up. Or just questing for 1 later in the game. Or when you've got a bodyguard out. There's lots of advantages to having a character over a Lantern or One Jump Ahead.
Last thing on this card. I know we're going very long on this card.
This card is worth debating.
Last thing on this card. Because it gives you a little bit of ramp every single turn, you get benefit every single turn. There are points in, especially in limited games, where that does not come in handy later on because you're top decking or whatever, and this card feels basically useless because you're top decking into 1, 2, 3s. But in Lorcana now, we have ink sinks. We have boost cards. And so what this card does by giving you that extra ink every single turn, that extra option basically, is give you the ability to perhaps boost on turns or leverage boost abilities when you otherwise wouldn't be able to. It gives you more options. And so one of the reasons I do like this card as well is because of the existence of boost in the game right now.
Yeah. I will say, I don't think we've got a ruling yet on whether you choose when this ability happens or it always happens with the first thing
I think
you
it
play.
is probably the first, yeah.
I can't stress this enough. It irritates me to no end when I see players exert all their ink for characters rather than using their lanterns. So please use this at the first possible sign so that if you draw into an ink sink, that you can get the maximum use out of it.
All right. Yes, fun card.
All right, let's
fun
move
card.
on. Yeah, that one I think was definitely worth the debate. All right, John Smith, Snow Tracker. He is an inkable 2/3/1 lore. At the end of your turn, if this character is exerted and none of your characters challenge this turn, gain 1 lore. So effectively, if you're not challenging, this is a 2-cost 2/3/2 lore, which is above rate, not far above rate. We had the inkable 2/2/2 lores for 2, but I think enough that he interests me, right? Like the 2-cost 2/3/1 lore stat line is now in the rear view mirror. We're now up to the 3/3s since Whispers, but the 2/3s is still not a irrelevant body, especially if your opponent plays a 1-drop, right? The 2/3 is going to trump almost all of the 1-drops, and certainly all the 1-drops in this set. The fact that you can potentially get the extra lore is great. Chances are, by the time you want to be challenging, this probably isn't going to be on the board again anyway. So I find it interesting. I don't think it's great, but I think it's another kind of mid to low C.
I will agree with you at a C. I think this card's playable. I think in limited aggro is it's part of bread. It's part of your winning. It's cards that it's one of the ways you evaluate cards. Bread being or the A in bread being aggro. That's the way I like to think about limited. So and you're right. It is essentially 2 lore on turn 2. So it's playable. But it's nothing that is fantastic. But I wouldn't hate to find it in my deck.
Oh, for sure. No, I think I'd be perfectly fine with it. In fact, I did a test draft the other day and took 2 of them. All right. Oh, hey, there's a fun one for you to read through.
Oh dear, yeah, Ruben, fun little character here. It's inkable. It's a 1/3, and its lunch special ability says you can exert it to remove up to 2 damage from chosen character of yours. For each 1 damage removed this way, pay 1 ink less for the next character you play this turn. Yeah. I don't know how to evaluate this card. This is another card, like, the problem with limited for me is cards that are situational, cards that require some kind of a setup in order to get the benefit out of. They're very, very difficult to set up in limited some of the times. You have to have the right combo around, or you have to have the right lines. And in Constructed, you can design your deck to execute certain lines in the early game, which then set up scenarios for you in the later game with cards that benefit from an ability like Ruben's or Rapunzel's or something like that. I don't love this card. I think you can get some great value out of it in the right situation, but it's not something that I want to have to play into. For me, it's probably a D, because again, at best, and oftentimes you're getting a 1/3 on turn 2 with 1 lore, and the odds of you getting to leverage this ability are, 30 to 40% maybe, and otherwise it's not a great card. It's not my favorite.
Yeah, it's hard to say. And so here's the interesting thing about limited is once you get past turn like 6, maybe 7, you're at that point where you're probably top decking. Mm-hmm. Again, you try to construct your deck so that that's not the case. You try to manage the board so that that's not the case. But realistically speaking, you're probably top decking. So really, you've got to get an advantage from this in terms of the ink savings in those first, the next turn 3 through 6. Right? Playing this, your opponent's probably not going to try and play into it. Here's the thing. I think that the damage removal is relevant. I historically do not like pure damage removal in limited. I don't think it does enough for me unless it's substantial. But that paired with the ink savings is interesting enough that I think it's relevant. I added it a C-, but I think between C- and D+ absolutely is a reasonable place to put it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I was focused on the ramp ability. The heal ability could be relevant. Damage removal and healing in limited can be very powerful. So perhaps I don't love it, but I can see the low C argument as well as a high D.
Yeah. So this is where I tend to sometimes put them places and then move them around, because if we get a whole bunch of Ds or a whole bunch of Cs, then I start shifting them around just because I like balance.
Yeah. I don't hate the healing ability, though. I will say that.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? Even if worst case scenario, what it does is stalls your opponent for a few turns because they don't want to play into it, that's not bad either.
Yeah.
Simba, Playful Pouncer, inkable 2/2/1 lore. When you play this character, chosen opposing character gets -2 strength until the start of your next turn. So historically, I don't tend to love the lower cost ones of these because I tend to think of cards wanting to play them on curve. So this is an ability that you probably want to play on turn 4 or 5 or something like that, which means you then have to have another 2-drop or a 3-drop to go with it to kind of maximize the use of that turn. Chances are, especially in a set with just miserable 1-drops, that there's never a point where you're playing this on turn 2. So as a result, that dings it a little bit, but the minus strength ability is not irrelevant. There's plenty of times where you can use it as a challenging trick to have your character survive a challenge they might not otherwise. They might have been discarded, banished otherwise, rather. So I don't think it's irrelevant, but I don't think it's particularly exciting. So I've got it, again, in that kind of C- territory. I'd probably have it above Ruben, but not above John Smith.
Yeah, I will give it the same grade, but I'm actually a little bit higher on it, I think, than you are. I'd put it at a high C. What I always love with these cards is when you see that line until the start of your next turn, because it does enable a favorable trade for you, but it also can effectively protect, pick a challenging character from your opponent and protect one of your characters till the start of your next turn. If you do play it on curve and you are playing an aggressive line, if you do have a 1-drop quest or you're trying to get some lore out of, you can quest with it, drop this on curve, and protect it till the start of your next turn. So I see that it has some utility. I'd probably put it as a high C, but I won't go any higher than that.
Sure. So where do you like it relative to David?
Oh, relative to David. I would rather have David, I think, than this card.
Okay.
I think.
That's where I wanted it, so you notice I agreed immediately. You're getting all the aliens. Go ahead.
Yeah, Angel, fun song here. Siren singer, 2/2 with 1 lore. And she has the underdog ability, a new ability here in Winterspell, which says if this is your first turn and you're not the first player, you may pay 1 ink less to play this character. Underdog is an ability I think that we're all going to be familiar with before long. We're just going to need to say underdog, but for now we'll explain it. Yeah. It's a great card that gives you. It makes her cheaper if you are on the draw. It's kind of a catch-up card. But here's the problem. Clearly, this card is good and constructed because of that Singer 3. It allows you to establish a Singer 3 on turn 1, giving you that ability, because effectively a 2/2 on turn 1 isn't that powerful. It's fine. And here, again, in Limited, you have to have a 3-cost song to make maximum use of establishing that character early. Don't love it. Effectively, it's a 2/2 with 1 lore. It's pretty standard. I mean, it's probably low C, high D. Like, you're just not getting any benefit from her underdog ability, really. And that's the difference, again, between constructed and Limited.
Yeah, agreed. Like, really, the only song that comes to mind that I want to sing with her is a rare. So, yeah, I mean, just full disclosure, the 1-cost 2/2s I have at D as well. So I think even if you get her out on turn 1,
yeah,
like you said, like the chances of you having a song, and there's very few songs that you should be taking or putting in your sealed pool anyway. So, yeah, I think you could have her intermix with Pudge in there. Kind of 6 of 1, half a dozen together.
I might rate it higher if there was like a sing together song that was really powerful that you could like pull in the uncommon slot. I might rate it higher, but there's just not a lot of payoff in this set.
Yeah, and Fable might have been interesting. Yeah, for sure. Mother Will Protect You. Inkable action song. Chosen character can't be challenged until the start of your next turn. Really useful ability if you've got a strong quester. The problem that I have with it is you're spending a card for that. And if you've listened at all, you know that card advantage, that card economy is really, really important to me. Perhaps more than anything else. And me spending a card on this, I would rather just spend the card on another character. So yeah, I might have a 3 lore quester that I'd love to protect, but I'd probably just rather put out another 2 lore quester and call it a day. So I have this as the lowest of Ds.
It's an F. I'm with you. It's an F.
All right. I'm okay. So
I don't...
Go ahead.
I would hate to have this card in my deck. I don't want it. It can benefit you. There are scenarios where you draw this card and you're like, oh my goodness, now I can close out the game. But those scenarios are few and far between, and it's just a dead card most of the time. If it said draw card on top of doing what it's doing, I'd rank it a little bit higher. Great card then.
Yeah.
But to me, it's just, if I had this card in my limited pool, and I had to put it in my deck, I would be very sad about it. I don't like it.
Yep. Agreed.
Not unlimited.
Okay, dig it.
Not unlimited. Although, brilliant art by
You're up.
Javi Salas, by the way. Yeah. Mother Gothel was his very first card he ever illustrated for Lorcana, and he loves that card.
No, yeah.
So it's great to get him to see him revisit that character here. So I'm just going to throw that out there.
Love it. I got the chance to meet him in Richmond.
Yeah. Amethyst. Oh, is it me? All right,
Yeah.
Nala romping in the snow.
That's okay. I forget the order
That's
all
okay.
the time.
I was so excited. Nala romping in the snow is a 2-cost, 2/2 with 1 lore. When you play this character, chosen characters of yours gains evasive until the start of your next turn. Oh goodness. This is. I think this is a good card. So here's what's interesting. Here we have another card, kind of like that Simba before, which gives you it's understated for its cost, but it gives you a payoff. Simba was decreasing strength. This is evasive until the start of your next turn. The thing with this card that makes it really good to me is evasives in limited are very, very good. And this has double value. On the one hand, it can protect one of your cards until the start of your next turn, a high lore quester or something you're trying to get some benefit out of. But it's also an anti-evasive card. In limited, if your opponent establishes an evasive card with 1 or 2 lore and they are just able to quest with that 4, 5, 6, 7 turns in a row, and there's not much removal you have to deal with it, they can win games. And so this is a surprise kind of combat trick, as we call them in other card games, which allow you to sneakily remove your opponent's exerted evasive. I think this is a decent card. I might put it at a low B. There are scenarios where you draw it and it's not very good, but in general, I kind of like it. Where are you at, Heath?
So this is one that I rate very differently depending on where you're at in the draft. In sealed, I would want to include it in my pool. So it doesn't really matter all that much. I would want to have this in my pool unless I've just been so fortunate to get a bunch of lumpies. If I'm drafting, it's going to depend, right? If we're in pack 3 or 4 and I don't have answers to evasives or my own evasives, then Nala rates higher for me. As an evasive answer, it's not great. I would rather either my own evasive or, something that's recurring. I think about, I can keep forgetting it. I keep wanting to call it Inkcaster, but it's Ink Runner from the last set. Love that, right? Draw a card and I get to reuse it. Fantastic. So I don't love it, but you hit on something that I do like about it, which is that it's flexible, right? It can either protect my character or it can allow me to challenge into an opposing evasive. The other good thing about it being kind of a surprise is that an unplayability versus, say, a quest ability is that evasives tend to be understated relative to non-evasives, right? So it's going to be a lot easier for me to run my 2-cost into your 3-cost evasive and have it survive my 3-cost and your 4-cost, etc. So I can get usually some ink advantage as well as potentially card advantage in there. So I think you kind of brought me up a little bit. I had a C, C-. I'd be willing to get up to like a C+ territory. I don't think I'm at B-, but okay. I would say I'd be fine with having it above David if that's where we're at. And you know what? Like I said, if C's get clogged and we don't have much B's, I will put it in a B-.
I'm there with you. What I don't know, and this would affect my ratings, I've not done an analysis of like the number of evasives in Winterspell, if they're prevalent. And so that would affect my rating as well. Depending on if there's a ton of common evasive characters, I think this card is better. If there's not a ton of common evasives running around and you're not likely to see them, then my rating on this card is a little bit worse. But that's another caveat here.
The 2 egregious ones are Vixie and Lumpy. So Vixie's an uncommon, Lumpy's a common. Those 2 are going to be problematic because we got a 1/3/2 lore and a 6/5/2 lore, respectively. Other than that, there's a few 1 lore evasives that aren't that problematic. We've got White Rabbit we're going to see in a little bit. We've got Squeaks we're going to see in a little bit. I'm not that worried about those. If my opponent can kind of quest freely with those while I'm questing on the ground, not a big deal. But if all of a sudden they drop Vixie on turn 3, or heaven forbid Todd and then Vixie on turn 2, then we got problems.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think you've got it. Even though there isn't as many threatening evasives in this set as in otherwise, one, they're common and uncommon, so they're accessible enough. And then obviously we've got Todd at rare and whatnot, the 4-drop. They're common enough that you've got to be prepared to handle them.
Okay.
All right. Pocahontas, uninkable, 3/2, 1 lore. Whenever this character quests, gain lore equal to another chosen exerted character's lore. You want to talk about the A in bread. Yeah, this can do some damage. She's probably not going to survive for more than one turn after questing, but a 2-cost 3/2 that can pretty easily in a game quest for 3, that is a pretty reasonable rate. So there's not much else to say about it. Yes, obviously, if you can protect it, she's even better. Yes, you may have a situation where you're only getting 2 off this, but I probably wouldn't exert her if she was going to get challenged back and removed, and I would only quest for 2. I would probably just sit on her until she could at least quest for 3. And especially once I've got Pocahontas, I am prioritizing bodyguards higher. So I have her at a B-.
I'll agree with you. There's a couple things I really like about this card. One is that she doesn't say another of your chosen exerted characters. It's another chosen character's lore. And so what that also does is perhaps cause your opponent to second guess when they're choosing to quest with some of their 2 lore characters. So you can drop her on the board, and your opponent then has to consider whether or not that quest is worth it if you're going to get some benefit out of it. The other thing is if you play her on curve, a 3/2, I don't hate that stat line. A 2/2 would feel a lot worse, but on a 3/2 on curve, if you choose to use her early for an aggressive, line, then she's probably banishing whatever challenges into her in the early game, at least on turn 2 or 3. Turn 4 or 5, obviously it's a little different. So I like her. I think she's worth 2 lore, maybe 3. Aggressive play. I'll agree with your rating.
Yeah. Think we're both happy with below Grandmother Willow?
I think so.
Yeah. All right. Continuing on, you've got
This is
Anna.
so fun. All right. Is this me?
She's so cute.
Anna Little Sister is an inkable 2/3. Her unexpected discoverability says, when you play this character, you may put a card from chosen player's discard on the bottom of their deck. It's fine. I mean, it's a 2/3 on 2, so the stats aren't terrible. Nowadays we are seeing like vanilla 3/3s and stuff on turn 2, so her stats aren't great either. The thing is, like, this ability is good for a couple different reasons in Constructed. It's really, really great when you're banishing a card that your opponent's recurring or in danger of recurring. But in Limited, again, the chances of that ability serving you any sort of benefit are really, really low. And so really, this might as well be a vanilla 2/3 for 2. But I don't hate that stat line. There's a lot worse. There's 2 2s for 2. So it's a vanilla 2/3 for 2. It's filler. It's not terrible, but it's also not great.
I feel like you're trying to talk yourself out of a D.
I kind of am. I'm like comparing it to Angel, right? Because Angel is generally most of the time a vanilla, like 1/3 for 2.
Yeah, but I've got Angel as a low D.
Yeah. This is probably.
I would put Anna as a high D.
This is probably a high D. It's not a card I would hate to have because the stat line to me isn't terrible at 2, but it's also just like it's a vanilla 2/3. That's what it is.
Yeah, so here's the thing. You actually talked me. I had her at C- on my list, but the more you talk, I'm like, yeah, she's a D. So here's the thing. We should address that there are some cards in this set that that synergize with cards leaving discard. It's a bit of a Christmas land, wish for that to actually work. There's the Shift Anna, and then there's the... Is it a Hans? There's the 4-drop that you draw a card if a card left discard. But just, again, as in most things, when you need to have a very precise combination of things working together, the likelihood of having them both in your sealed pool or drafting them both, and even if you do, having them at the same time or at a time where you actually want to be playing them based on what else is in your hand, that you don't have better options, it just all amounts to don't try and force something like that.
Yeah.
So Ever at a D.
And agree. The reason though I'm like a high D and potentially even a C is if I were forced to, if I'm having to build a good curve in my limited pool and I'm curving a 2-3 on 2, I don't hate that stat line. If I'm curving a 2-2, I hate it. A 2-3, I don't hate.
I used to have vanilla 2-3s as like C to C plus, but it's just the way that the vanilla stat lines are trending. When we've got 2-cost 3-3s and 3-cost 4-4s flying around, the 2-3 really
not
starts
many though. That's the thing.
Weaker.
But I agree with you.
Not many, but at common and uncommon, we've still got them.
Well, and speaking of 2-cost uncommons, here's another one you could curve into. What's up with
yeah, so we got Christopher Robin joining the fun. Inkable 1/3/2 lore with that underdog ability. So if you're on the draw and he is your first turn play, you can pay 1 for him instead. I'm not a huge fan of the underdog ability in limited, just because I wish it was just if you were on the play or on the draw rather. Like if you could play him turn 4 with a 3-drop, I would be over the moon, but I guess that would probably be too strong for constructed then. The fact that you have to specifically find them on turn 1 makes it so that it's not a card that I want a hard mulligan for. So my likelihood of seeing it on turn 1 feels pretty low. Specifically, if it's to find it in even a 35 card draft deck in your opening hand without mulliganing is about 7%. Even if you mulligan completely, it's about 15%. So it's, or I should say, of the games, because it's actually twice that, but you're only on the draw.
Oh, okay, fair. That's why I was confused. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, I should specify. That math was me taking another leap I forgot to explain. Yeah. So for the half of the games where you are on the draw, and it's not always half, right? But it depends. But let's say half the games, you're just not seeing it that often, right? So let's talk about worst case scenario. Worst case scenario, it's a 2-cost 1/3/2 lore. That's not awful, but again, it's outstatted so quickly. And for me, I hate the idea of spending a card just to gain 2 lore. Now, it's not just that. It's not like an action that says gain 2 lore, because it still requires your opponent challenging, which distracts them from either challenging something else or questing on their own. But it's still not a heavy investment on their part to remove this. So I don't love it. But I think in terms of the underdog cards, this is probably my second favorite. So I've got it like a C- territory, somewhere in that range. But I'm not in love with it.
I'm also not in love with it, but I also don't hate it. I like low-cost 2 lore questers. And with 3 in the willpower line, it's also a little bit durable for turn 2. I agree with you that the underdog ability isn't likely to pay off most of the time, but it does make it a little bit better than other 2 lore questers you might drop, because you do get that payoff occasionally. So I would also put it at mid C. I wouldn't be sad to have this in my limited deck, depending on how the rest of my curve is. But I don't hate it. The thing about 2 lore questers for me too, by the way, is, and especially in limited, is I like 2 lore questers feel good. Because even in the late game, when you're not playing something on curve, there are scenarios where you're looking to scratch out that last, 4, 5, 6 lore. And even if at that point in the game, you're dropping down a 2 lore quester and then getting 2 lore out of it, and you're top decking another 2 lore quester and you're getting 2 lore out of it, the fact that there's such limited removal in this format means that you draw this card at any point in the game, you can get 2 lore out of it if you so choose. Most, 95% of the time. So
most of the games.
Yeah.
I think Isis Vanderquack's probably the biggest threat to that.
Yes.
In terms of accessible removal,
Absolutely.
right? Because obviously, no one's likely to be using Let It Go on this. So, yeah, I'm with you. It's funny because I would almost rather this late game than early game in terms of if it's a late game top deck, I'd rather draw a 2 lore quester. I'd probably rather this than a 3-cost 4/4 in the late game when we're trying to just end it out, right? But if this was, 3 or 4 sets ago when the vanilla stat line at 2 was 2/3/1 lore, I would like this more. But again, I have a problem with, we've got the 3/3, we've got the 4/2 at
fair
2 costs now. So it's just a little less durable than it used to be. Where do you like it? I like it definitely below David, but I'm happy with it above Simba.
I think if I had to choose between the 2, I think I would play this over Simba. I think so. But they're close. Depends on what the rest of my pack looks like.
So this is where inevitably for our viewers, it's you also got to assess where your deck's at, right? Like when they're that negligibly close, you got to think, what does my deck need, right? If your deck needs more Two Lore Questers, obviously go with Christopher Robin. If you want more of that combat trick, because I think Simba's better used as a combat trick than as a potential protection, then go with Simba, right? Oh, you're getting all the fun ones to read.
Apparently, Heihei Persistent Presence is an inkable 2/1. When this character is banished in a challenge, return this card from your discard to your hand.
Sorry, I figured you could finish that. I was like, we should get down to the set.
Yeah, no. Did it used to say from your discard in the original printing?
Let's see.
Yeah,
here.
it did not.
Return this card. Yeah.
I thought that might be an update.
There we go. Now we've got the proper wording.
Yeah, I thought that might be an update because I don't think they were doing that back in set 2. Yeah, reprint from Rise of the Floodborn. Here's the thing. I think this card is very good. Not very good. I think this card's pretty good. Card advantage is a big deal in Limited, as we talked about, and this card is likely to, because there's so, I'll say it over and over again, because there's such limited removal, if this card is banished from the field, it is likely to be banished in a challenge, and you're going to get it back over and over and over and over again. The downside of this card is, unlike Lilo Escape Artist, where like it has to sit, it has to dry, and then you have to quest with it. But I find, let me tell a story. I remember this card the most because it was printed in the starter deck back in, I think it was Rise of the Floodborn, right? And I remember just doing work in that starter deck where eventually, like, you're dropping multiple characters a turn because you're always dropping another Heihei every single time it quests. So I would, I'm talking myself, I would put this card as C, probably a high C. I actually like this card a lot. It's a card that I would not be unhappy to have, depending on what my curve looks like. But it is a sneaky form of card advantage. All right, I'll stop. What do you think?
Yeah, no, good. I'm with you. So the only reason why I don't have this higher than a C+, which is sounds like where you're at, is because it used to do more work than it does now. Mm-hmm. Again, we've got to factor in that the bodies are getting larger, so 2 damage in a challenge isn't what it used to be. It's still not bad, but it's not what it used to be. For me, I love this ability in Limited, but I love it specifically on cards that I want to be challenging with rather than questing with, because questing with, my opponent can, remove it, and then, I've got card advantage, but if I'm always dumping ink into it, my hand starts getting glutted, and then my opponent can out-tempo me. Whereas this, I just want to kind of toss it down when I've got some extra ink, run it into something, toss it down again, like... I want it to be a nuisance, and I think it accomplishes that. I just don't think it rises to more than that. So I think that would put it as a high C, as you call it.
The one thing I'll offer on this as well is the inkability of it. What I do like about this card too is in Limited, you end up running into these scenarios in the late game where you're struggling because you're sitting here and you're like, I've got like a 4 cost and I've got a 5 cost and I need to ink this turn and I really want to play this 5 cost, but I don't want to ink this card. And so Heihei is a card which you can play on curve early, but if in a pinch later on, he becomes convenient ink when he's bounced back to your hand. So that's another thing to consider.
No, absolutely. That's a great point. So it sounds like the way you've talked before that you would have Heihei below Nala.
I think so. I like Nala. I don't know why I like Nala so much, but I like Nala.
Fair enough. That's all right. I got Heihei above Nala, but I not by enough that, again, this is all like, it's so small margins that, having it above or below isn't really gonna, you got to think about what your deck needs, but they're comparable. Yep. All right, come out and fight. An inkable action, put all cards from under chosen character, item, or location on the bottom of their player's deck in a random order and draw a card. If this didn't say draw a card, it would be utterly, utterly awful. It still is, but it's not the end of the world. So this is what I would call the perfect D card, which is to say 95% of the time, this is ink. But every once in a while, your opponent drops a genie or a Pete or something like that, and you're like, ooh, I would really love to remove all the cards from the bottom of this, and it replaces itself in the process. So this is probably like a low D. My wife just gave me this, it's our daughter's bedtime symbol. This is probably a low D in that I would never want to have this in my deck, but if I'm searching for the last card, the 40th card in my sealed deck, or the 35th card in my draft deck, and this happened to be it, you're going to be inking it most of the time, but maybe you find an opportunity to make it worthwhile.
I'm trying to you're trying to talk me out of it being an F. I low D.
So Fs I usually say for being uninkable bad cards. I usually have the inkable fine cards in D in relative order. But again, if we start getting a glut of Ds, this will push down into F for sure. It's a low D.
Yeah,
that I will be happy to put in F should the need arise.
I just think it's way too situational. I wouldn't want to play it. It does replace itself, but it is an action, which means you can't sing it. And luckily, it's inkable. But yeah, I'm not happy to play it.
No, you don't have to sell me hard on that. All right, take it away. All right,
an uninkable here. Mother's Necklace is an item at the end of your turn. If none of your characters challenge this turn, chosen character of yours gains evasive until the start of your next turn. Oh goodness gracious, Heath, I will have to think long and hard about this card. We talked about how important evasive is in limited and how there's not a ton of cards, and the fact that you can give. You can protect one of your characters with evasive is great. The problem with this card is that it's a protection for your character, but it doesn't enable you to challenge into your opponent's evasive characters. It's a tempo killer. It's uninkable. The more I think about it, the more I don't like it. I'm probably putting it in the D. I don't know where in the D. It's probably below Pudge. It might be. You're putting it in an F. Yeah, I'm totally fine with that.
If it's bad enough to be a D and it's uninkable, I'm pretty firm on it being an F because you just shouldn't. And I'm with you. Like, if this was inkable, I'd be interested. I would still probably have it as like a D plus to a C minus, but I'd be at least interested in, hey, if I can build an aggressive deck and the situation arises where, I don't foresee, I post mull and I see 2 lore into 2 lore into 2 lore. Okay, maybe dropping Mother's Necklace on turn 4 with another 2-drop makes sense. But there's so many times where you need to be challenging limited, even if you are the quester. Yeah. You need to challenge at least once. Hey, I need to run my 1-drop into their 5-drop so that they can't continue to take out my best questers. That it's kind of combating or at odds with the kind of natural state of limited. You would have to just be hyper aggro, all gas, no brakes for this to be relevant. And the fact that it's uninkable and you need that situation to arise, it's a trap. Yep.
The funny thing is, there are scenarios where this card would win you games, but they're few and far between. I'm with you.
Which is why if it was inkable,
yeah,
I'd be interested. Again, those niche situations where a card can do well for you, but most of the time it's ink. But the fact that it forces you to play the card, yeah. All right, Mulan, Resourceful Recruit, inkable, 1/4, technically 0 lore. When this character quests, gain lore equal to her strength to a maximum of 6 lore. Can we safely say that this is a 1/4, 1 lore and just call it a day? If so, that's a D.
Yeah, I'd put it at high.
There's a little bit of support in this set, but we've been spoiled with support the last 2 sets.
Okay, here's what we'll do.
If it's a sealed pool and you've got 3 or 4 support characters in there, I'm willing to hedge on Mulan because she's inkable. But a 1/4, 1 lore most of the time is really bad these days.
Okay. I'll go with you. I like the 4 stat line on 2, or the 4 willpower on 2, but I will agree with you. I haven't evaluated the set enough to know how much support and how much strength augmentation there is. So I will trust your judgment. I will put this where you, because I agree. It's generally a vanilla
specifically
1/4.
Of the cards you actively want to play, of the cards that are even C or better, so not C minus or Ds. There's really only one.
Okay.
There's the Tiana. Right. There's a Minnie. And there's we're gonna see it. That was in the 1-drops. The Arendel's Scepter of Arendelle / Tiny Tim's Crutch.
Okay. Yep.
That gives support.
Let's put her in D.
It's just not enough. There's actions that give plus strength, but they don't draw a card.
All right.
So
it's a vanilla 1/4 questing for 1. Yeah, let's put it in the D.
Yeah, which I would have below a 2/3. Again, if you've got a sealed pool where you've got... So for me, when we talk about kind of the statistics of actually drawing into things, I would want to have like 3 or 4 of the card that I'm looking for to go with this for me to want to play it. And even then, I'm not expecting to get it. I just know that the odds are decent enough that it's worth playing when it's uninkable. But again, seeing it in the right orders, seeing it at the right time, you know, you draw your Tiana, you use her, she's challenged and banished, and then 2 turns later you draw your Mulan, and you're like, oh no.
Yep. I'm with you.
All right. Now we got an easy one.
Yeah, this is a great stat line. 3/3 on 2 is great. I'd love to play this on curve. It's just well statted for a turn 2. Even later game, oh, sorry, I should read the card. Minnie Mouse is spinning skaters a 3/3 with 1 lore on turn 2. Yeah, it's good. It's a what? It's a high C. It's very well statted. I like it. That's a vanilla. There we go. What do you think?
So, I've got this as a low B, and I'd probably have it around Pocahontas. Debatable one way or the other. Probably below. But the reason being is we've been talking so much about how the 3/3s are out there, and that's why it makes all these other cards bad. So I want to be the one with the 3/3.
Yeah.
I want to punish my opponent for playing Christopher Robin. I want to punish my opponent for playing, John Smith or, whatever the case may be. I want to make sure I can take out that Pocahontas. I mean, all these can, but that was kind of a bad example. But regardless, I want to be the one with the 3/3. The fact that it's common means that you will see more of them, but everyone's going to be looking for these. Arguably, there is one in here that's better, but it's uninkable, and it's uncommon, so I really like Minnie Mouse. I've got her at a B-. I think probably below Pocahontas, but I think arguably in that territory.
I agree with you. The one thing I'll note on this too, we talk about the value of playing certain stat lines on curve, and a 3/3 on 2 is very, very good. But there are also scenarios in Limited where you want to go wide early if you're playing an aggressive line. And so there are scenarios where you will go like a card on turn 1, you'll play on curve on turn 2, and then on turn 3, or on turn 4, let's say, you might do 2 2-drops. Or on turn 5, you might do a 3 and a 2. And this is just a well-statted card whenever you manage to squeeze out that extra 2 ink. So, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. This is you.
It is me. I just want to bounce off that for 1 second because there's some stats. You were saying you're coming in blind a little bit, so I just want to kind of speak to the audience and to yourself a little bit about what to expect out of Winterspell specifically, because I'm with you. I like a tempo game, so I like to being able to kind of pivot to an aggressive style. I don't want to go hyper aggressive, but I want to be able to pivot to aggressive style. So I used to really like 1-drops. In this set specifically, the highest 1-drop I have rated is a C, and that's one of them. I've got 2 C-, and the rest are Ds or Fs. We got some bad 1-drops in this set for Limited. And so chances are you're not going to be wanting to play anything before turn 2.
I love it. Okay.
So when that's happening, the 3/3 stat line becomes more important because then you're kind of mitigating any risk of your opponent playing a 1-drop into a 2-drop. Right? If you're on the draw and they go 1-drop into 2-drop, but your 2-drop is Minnie Mouse, all of a sudden you halt them in their tracks because they've got nothing that can compete with that at that point. They're going to quest up to 5 real easy, but after that they're going to be in trouble because they've invested into a bad 1-drop and a 2-drop, right? So in this set, having that stat line becomes more important. So I want to be strong in 2s because I know I'm probably going to be sacrificing 1-drops. I want my opponents to take all the 1-drops to play all the 1-drops.
I agree. That's a great point. And yeah, great point.
Dinky has the brains. It's like Pinky in the Brain. Inkable 1/2 2 lore. When you play this character, each opponent chooses one of their characters and deals 1 damage to them. I don't love giving my opponent the option. I want to assume my opponent is going to make the right choice. Yes, something like this gives your opponent the ability to make a mistake, but unless they have 1 character and it's got 1 willpower, chances are that's not doing much. So really, this is a slightly better than a 1/2 2 lore. Yeah, it's putting a damage on one of your opponent's characters. That's not nothing. But that's not enough to get me particularly excited. So I'm looking this as a marginally better 1/2 2 lore, which I do not like in the least. So I would have this as a D plus. Again, as you said, late game, I'd take any 2 lore body. So this is like a high D plus for me, but it's still going to be ink most of the time for me until late game, where I'm just looking for any 2 lore body.
I mostly agree with you. I would put it at a high D. I might even put it at a low C. I might actually like this better than Ruben. Anything with 2 lore, you know, that I can play early, I kind of like. But I agree with you that its ability is almost negligible, because the chances of it benefiting you in a significant way are very, very low. So I'll agree with it at a high D. But anything with 2 lore in the early game.
So let me ask you this: what happens when you play a really mediocre 1-drop into Dinky, and then I play even Anna on the crackback? It's like you've gotten to 4, but you're down 2 cards at that point, and
yeah, it's a great point. And when you talk about the curve, it depends on what I have on turn 3, like what I'm curving into. But also, like, the problem for me in limited is in the late game, I want to draw into 2 things generally, or 3 things. I want to draw into removal, I want to draw into removal or card draw, which come at a premium. Yep. Or I want to draw into one of my late game bombs, like a 6-drop, 6, 7, something that's gonna. Or I want to draw into something with 2 lore. In the late game, if I draw into even a 2-cost 3/3 with 1 lore, I'm kind of like, fine. But anytime I draw 2 lore in the late game, generally I'm pretty excited about it. So that's where I'm like.
So this is where you're saying kind of exactly what I was saying about Christopher Robin earlier, which is I almost would rather draw this late, which is to say early it's just going to be ink for me. Late it's 2 lore. But again, for me, that is the quintessential D, which is turns 1 through 7, this is ink. Probably not 7, because I'm probably not inking up to 7. But turns 1 through 6, this is ink. And then after that, it's a 2 lore body. That's a D for me, because I would rather have something that I'm excited to play on curve and, let the chips fall as they may later, than something that I'm just like, well, late it's going to be a 1/2 2 lore body, and that's better than nothing.
Yeah. I'll agree with you. This is another card too that I think is much worse in Winterspell as vanilla stat lines have been going up. In earlier sets where cards like Curse Merfolk and things are running around, like, it's better. But
yep. And let's be clear, like, there's times where that 1 damage might do something, but it's probably not when your opponent gets to choose. If it was a 1/2 2 lore where you could put 1 damage on, we'd be having a very different conversation.
Squeaks is an 0/4 with 1 lore and evasive. This is a fun card. Here's the thing, Heath. Again, I am not as up on the number of evasives in this set. There's not a ton, I actually kind of love this card. Back in the day in Constructed, you could drop, in certain metas, you could drop a Pegasus on turn 1 and reliably get 5, 6, 7 lore out of it before your opponent had an answer. And to me, this can fill a similar role where if you are the beatdown, if you're aggressive, you drop this on turn 2, you can just quest with it for like 5 turns. All the turns. So I don't hate this at all. I don't know that I would. I'm probably in B territory with this one. I'm probably in low B. I don't hate it. What do you think?
So the reason I don't have it in B, I've got it in the kind of C to C plus territory, is because, yes, you can quest with it forever. Like, your opponents will have some answers occasionally. Like I said, Lumpy is the biggest egregious one because it's common. But other than that, we've got an uncommon that will deal with this. We've got White Rabbit we're going to see in a second that will eventually deal with this. So there are cards that will deal with this, but in the average game, you're probably going to be able to quest with this at least a few times before your opponent draws something, even if they've got it. And if they don't got it, literally Let It Go is the only removal that will remove this, because there's no 4 damage actions that will remove this. So they have to have an evasive answer to it, or a Nala or something like that, right? The reason why I don't have it higher is because there's times where I'm okay with you questing for 1 a turn. If I'm doing dirty things at the ground level, I always consider evasive flying. I know it's not technically flying, But if I'm doing, really controlling the board with the rest of your board, and you're just questing for one, then I'm in control mode where it's like, you're going to quest for one for 5 turns. I'm not going to quest at all for a few turns, but then I'm going to start questing for 4. So it is not in and of itself a massive threat. This is where the difference between this and Vixie is so substantial. 2 lore questers on evasive bodies are so much more substantial, right? Yeah. Literally, obviously, we do the math. It's twice as impactful. So I don't have it in that B territory just because there are plenty of situations where I can kind of ignore it safely. But it's still putting me on a clock. So you still have to respect it. So I still have it as a high, a mid to high C, probably high C based on what I'm looking at now. But I definitely don't have it in the Minnie Mouse or Pocahontas territory.
Okay. You said definitely. So in that case, I'll agree with you at high C. I love early evasives. They make me happy. And
I'm holding you to high C.
Okay, that's fair.
No, you're saying I said definitely. Like I'm holding you to high C. All right, so then we can safely put it above Nala then.
I think so. I do really like Nala, but I think so. I just love early game evasive characters, and 4 willpower is nothing to sneeze at either. If your opponent does surprise you with a Nala, it's likely to, it's a little durable. So I don't know.
Yep.
All right.
No, absolutely. Apologies. Sometimes I use words that are not as fitting as I want them to be. Definitely. It's like, hey, was it definitely though? White Rabbit, late again. Inkable, 2/2, 1 lore with evasive, and this also has the underdog ability. So you could potentially play this on turn 1. I feel like it's fair to rate this as a 2 cost with a slight upside, that maybe occasionally you're playing it on turn 1. But even as a 2 cost, 2/2, 1 lore evasive, I would prefer this to, would I prefer this to Squeak? So pluses and minuses. It can take out Squeaks, so that's a plus. There is removal in this set that can take this out. There's, enough removal. Well, not enough. There's 2 damage options where there isn't 4 damage options. So it is slightly more vulnerable than Squeaks, but also in a pinch, it can challenge, which is nice. If you really need to challenge for 2 sometimes. Obviously, this is the last thing you want to be challenging with, but if you need to, it can always challenge for 2. So personally, I would probably rather the 2/2 over the 0/4, but again, it depends on what your deck's looking for, and the 0/4 is certainly going to, or almost certainly going to survive longer.
You're right. And on the rare occasion where you get to play a 2/2 with evasive on turn 1, it's really good.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I've got him at in the C plus B minus territory, so somewhere in here.
Put him as C plus, and we'll reevaluate later. Then put him above, unless you think C is getting cluttered.
Well, you already had Squeaks at B minus, and I think we had Rabbit above Squeak, so I'm fine with putting it there. Also, I just see our C's are getting crowded.
That's fair.
All right. Go ahead, sir.
Oh, Strike a Good Match. This is a reprint. Now, you're looking at the set 3 version here with the old art. There is Kendall Hale's new art here.
Beautiful.
No, it's fun. So it's a 2 cost. Well, obviously 2 cost. It's Inkable, Strike a Good Match song. Draw 2 cards, then choose and discard a card. This is a great card. It's not. So here's the thing with Strike a Good Match. Like, it's not card draw, right? It replaces itself. So you're card neutral. But it does allow you to filter. And importantly, too, it is a song. And so what this gives you is consistency. I would be very happy to have this in a limited deck because, again, we keep talking about late game, you're top decking, early game, perhaps you're looking for certain cards. And I like this a lot. This is B? I mean, this is B. Can we agree? Where are you at on this?
I'm not, just because it is card parity. It is not card advantage, so I'm not that high on it. I do like the consistency, but the thing is saying it's a song is good. Not paying ink is good to a degree, but also it means I'm not questing, right? So really, you could almost look at this as pay 1 lore or 2 ink to draw 2 and discard a card. And in limited, when we're kind of racing to the finish line more often than not, that can matter. I do like filtering, especially when, we've got some really rough 1 and 2 drops in the set. But the reason why I don't love filtering is in the average limited deck, your average card is going to be in that C territory, right? As we can see, the glut of cards is in C, right? And not even high C, but mid C. So when you're looking at 2 cards off the top of your deck, they're probably not going to be substantially better than the cards that you already have in your hand. Probably better, but not necessarily so substantially better that it's worth investing in a lot. Now, again, it's card parity, so it's not like you're down a card, but I'm not in love with it. So for me, for example, I'd just rather be like, rather than paying the lore or the ink, I would just rather have a 1/4 bodyguard or a Heihei or Nala or an evasive or something like that. Like, yes, I'm happy to have this in my deck, but I'm not excited to have it in my deck. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So the thing for me is like as this is one of the things that I think through, or as I think through it, the more I like it, because in most scenarios, let's say we rank this as a C. In most scenarios where I'm top decking in the late game, or pretty much all scenarios, or even in the mid game, I would rather draw this card than any other 2 cost in its tier, because it gives me options. And if I had a choice between this and David, or this and Heihei, or this and whatever, most of the time I would rather draw this card, because it allows me to dig a little bit. It's effectively like neutralizing a spot in your deck. So instead of having like a 35 card deck or a 40 card deck, you're 1 less. The same way Develop Your Brain is basically like a neutral slot, an empty slot in a constructed deck. So
yeah, it thins out your
deck. So I don't know.
So I've noticed a trend here. You seem to think about the late game a lot.
I do.
I think about turns 1 through 6 a lot. So this is where I think we're coming from a different place, and that's okay. Again, for our audience out there, it's important that, we've got different voices and that you think of things differently and don't just go with, okay, Heath said this. This is just Heath's voice. So for me, I come at it a lot from, what am I doing on curve from 1 through 6? And from you, I'm seeing a trend of, you're thinking of, if I'm drawing this late, how am I feeling about it?
Yeah, and that's because of Lorcana's. It's a great point. I'm always thinking about the contingency in the late game, because card draw comes at such a premium in Lorcana, and in certain sets it's more than others. Because of Lorcana's card design, where every single turn, you're basically spending 2 cards. You're inking a card, you're playing a card, and sometimes you're playing 2 cards. Without that card draw, you will stall out. And at that point, when you're in top deck mode, I like cards that give you options, which is probably one of the reasons why I'm really high on cards like Nala, which have benefit in the early game, but also in the late game can give you some benefit with their on playability. So cards that are good in the early game, but then give you benefit in the late game, I really like. And so this card is one that I think is, I don't hate it. I'm never sad to have this card.
I think if you've got it around here, and I've got it around here, then let's go somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
So
put it above Heihei.
What's a point where you can be satisfied?
Okay. I'm happy if you put it around Heihei, either above or below him. Heihei represents like card value to me, and this represents like card value. So.
I mean, so this is where, I have Nala quite a bit lower than you do, so I'm fine with it here.
Okay.
But but there's some bias in
we're
there.
going so long with this episode, but I'm enjoying the talking. All right.
As long as you're having
I'm
fun,
loving
we're good.
this. You have no idea.
The audience just has to suffer as a result. It's fun.
Yeah.
Put it in the comments whether you're having fun with it or whether you're like, hey guys, speak it up. All right. Snowball fight. Inkable action. Each opponent chooses and discards a card. If you have a character with evasive in play, gain 1 lore. So this is basically a non-song sudden chill. I am not as big on discard as most people are, because I feel like the only time I ever like discard is if it is getting the last card or the last 2 cards out of my opponent's hand, which means I have to time this perfectly. And there are times where I thought I was going to time it perfectly, and then my opponent inks and plays 2 cards, and then I'm out of luck. So, if I'm playing this on turn 2 or even turn 4 or turn 5, and I'm just getting a mediocre C 3-drop out of their hand, that is not worth the ink and card investment for me. If I can manage to rip the last card out of their hand and it's their 6-drop or something like that, obviously that feels great. but it's just too finicky for me. So I much prefer the 2-card discard, like the 4-ink 2-card discard, than the 2-cost 1, because I'm much more likely to be able to time that well than trying to rip the very last card out of their hand. So as a result, I have this at D, but I know some people really like discard in limited, so feel free to contradict.
I won't. This is a low D to me, because there are points in the game where it is useless. It is absolutely useless. You top deck it, and it's an empty card you may as well not even have drawn. The evasive ability won't come into play very often. There are good arguments to be made for using a card to discard a card, because you are planning to leverage this card. You could ink it, and your opponent has a game plan that you're disrupting. But in general, it's not great. And the fact that there are scenarios where this card is just nothing makes it a card that I would not want to play.
Yeah. Let me put it this way. I have won more games where my opponents have made me discard than I have lost by a long shot. Because it's not just a matter of like, hey, I only paid 2 ink and made you discard. But it's like, if you did that at a time where it prevented you from putting down your own 5 or 6 drop, it messed with your curve, that's not great either. So I got a character down on the board faster than you did. And like you said, questing to the finish line. No, I'm with you. At the end game especially, that is just awful. I don't want to ink. There's nothing for me to discard.
Yeah.
It is a dead card.
It's a bad card in limited.
All right.
Bad card.
Yeah. All right, go ahead.
Sorry. Rafiki's Bakora staff is an uninkable item. It has 2 abilities. 1, you can exert it and pay 1 ink to draw a card, then choose and discard a card. Or 2, bonk, says banish this item to deal 1 damage to chosen character. Heath, this is another one. It's so if it was inkable,
it's
fine.
So bad.
Here's the funny thing. I talked earlier about how much I loved filtering. I went on and on and on with strike a good match about how great it was. This card though is I like a lot less.
Yeah, but that one you draw 2 and discard. This one you only draw 1 and discard.
It's
so you are down a card.
It's really bad. There are scenarios where you establish this card and then it's really, really good in the late game because you can look at 2 cards, but they're few and far between. And most of the time, this card is just not great. Don't like it. Wouldn't want to play it.
Yeah, this is an F for me. I mean, I might put it above Mother's Necklace, but I don't really care about the nuance of Fs.
It is interesting in a format with very, very limited removal, the ability to like deal 1, but just basically like 2 ink to deal 1 damage, and it's I don't know. All right, we'll move on.
It's 3 ink to deal 1 damage,
yeah,
right? Because it's 2 to play it and 1 to
yeah.
Like compare that to I can't remember the name of the item last set, but the 3-cost uninkable that you paid 1, exerted it, and dealt 1 damage, but you could keep doing that. I still didn't love that because I thought it was too slow, but at least you could repeat it. All right, I think we have hit my favorite 2-cost. So Scrooge McDuck, Ghostly Ebenezer, uninkable 3/3/1 lore with boost 1. This character gets +1 strength and +1 willpower for each card under him. Literally at every single turn, he is on rate with the best vanillas at the ink cost. So he's a 2-cost 3/3, a 3-cost 4/4, a 4-cost 5/5. At 5-cost 6/6, he is slightly below the 6/7 that we had at Cauldron Board. And I don't think that there's enough boost synergies, but if you've got any, you already love him, and the fact that you could potentially benefit from some boost synergies on top of this, I love Scrooge. I have him as a B to B plus. He's not an A for me. I think you're not throwing down him as a first pick bomb, but I'd be. Let me put it this way: I'd be fine and or happy to pick him first, but he's not like a first pick bomb to me.
It's this exercise for me is tough because when you're only comparing cards in a certain ink cost,
I know, relative to other cards,
right?
Yeah, it's tough. I have to split it up some way.
Right? No. I think it's great because evaluating this card in isolation among the 2-drops, this is an A. This is one of the best 2-drops in the game. I think you will find it's the best 2-drop I think I've seen so far. Yeah. This card is bonkers good in limited. It is tough for me to compare it to other tiers, but if I'm just considering it compared to every other card we've seen so far, I am snatching this up in the 2 slot every single time. It is a high B, if not an A for me. It's very, very good.
I might be able to give you some data that might help you make that decision, which might reinforce it more. And I've quite frankly made my list before I got into this data. So, and this is based off of my review, so take it with a grain of salt. But there is a substantially higher degree of quality 4-drops, for example, than 2-drops. The density of quality 4-drops is off the charts. And there's enough more 5 and 3-drops that it's going to be harder for you to be as excited about a 2-drop as you would with Scrooge versus the others. So that might make an argument for, hey, there might be a 4-drop that, on turn 4, of course I would rather play this, but relative to the other 2-drops, Scrooge might be enough better to make an argument for like an A-. I still think he's probably a B+, but I would not necessarily be averse to putting him in that A- territory.
So far, there is not another 2-drop I would rather play on curve than this.
I will say, on his own, he's a B+. What might put him into the A- territory is that there's not enough, there's not a lot of boost synergies, but there may be enough to put him over the top. And certainly if you've got a sealed pool and you've got boost synergies in there, or if this is pack 3 and you've gotten some good boost synergies, then he's off the charts.
The thing I do like about him is, depending on how your curve is, there are scenarios where you're playing slightly off curve and you're boosting him every turn. And on turn, 6, he's a 5/5. On turn 7, he's a 7 or 6/6. And he just like there's a point in the game where the board is stalled out and he's sitting there and he's like an 8/8, and you're decking yourself. But that's another discussion.
Well, the great thing is you can use him early to take out a small threat, and then just sit on him until you get him big enough to take out the next threat that you want to take.
Yeah.
He is very flexible. You like flexibility. He is the height of flexible. All right, take us away with the next
Fa Zhou, Honorable Warrior, is a 1/4 with 2 lore, and when he enters play, he enters with 2 damage on him. Again, I mean, we can just, because of the lack of healing synergy, we do have Ruben kicking around, but essentially this is a 1/2 with 2 lore on turn 2. I love cards with 2 lore, but I won't consider him any higher than I will a vanilla 1/2 with 2 lore, I don't think.
Yeah. Even with Ruben in the deck, you don't want more than 1 Ruben. Let's make that clear. So, he's, if you happen to have both 1-ofs in your deck and you happen to make it work with Ruben, great. But yeah, he's effectively a vanilla 1/2 lore, which, again, late game, I like those 2 lore bodies. The Ds are always going to be, the top of the Ds are always going to be the 2 lore bodies almost all the time. But relatively speaking. Liquidator, iced over, inkable, 4/2, 0 lore, because he's got Reckless. He also has the Underdog ability. So again, you could potentially play this one, but let's rate him for the most part as a 2-cost, 4/2 Reckless. So we used to have Gaston, and I thought he was pretty solid when we had him in the first chapter. He was okay in Fabled, but again, things are getting stronger and stronger. I don't love a 4/2 Reckless because your opponent can bait him out with their worst character early on. He does have uses. Don't get me wrong, Liquidator will be fine. It will be serviceable, but I'm not nearly as excited about him as I was for Gaston in the first chapter, and even then, I wasn't thrilled about him. I would have him in a C- territory.
C- D for me. I agree with you. He is serviceable. He can answer some early characters, but with the stat lines going up, I agree that the odds of him challenging into something and living when your opponent can play around it isn't great. And again, in the mid to late game, there's scenarios where I'm not happy to play anything without lore. So I don't love it.
I think if we're looking from John Smith through Fa Zhou and now Liquidator, they're all pretty negligibly different. So again, I think this comes down to what you need in your deck, but I'm fine with having them at D and even having them below the 2 lore characters, because I think it depends on what your deck needs, right? If your deck is mostly aggressive and you might need a few bodies to maybe control the board, Liquidator can help you out. But if you've already got big bodies, Liquidator becomes very replaceable very quickly.
That is a great point, Heath. If you were in a scenario where you have a bunch of those 3/3s on two, if you've got 2 or 3 of the Minnie Mouses and the other the Scrooge, where you're dropping those on turn 2 and you're very well statted there, great. if you have a very, very aggressive line where you're like high lore, low cost characters and you need something when you're on the draw in that control mode, dropping a 4/2 on turn 1 ain't bad.
Yep.
So I agree that it does come down to the needs of your individual deck.
All right, take us away.
This is good. Uninkable 2/3 evasive with 1 lore. I don't like her uninkability. That feels really, really bad because you're forced to play her.
Yeah.
But I'm not unhappy to play a 2/3 evasive on turn 2. So far, we've seen that your opponent could be playing a 2/2 evasive. They could be playing an 0/4 evasive on turn 2. I think that's not an unrealistic line. And this answers both of those.
I'll be honest, I forgot about Iduna.
I did too, until I just saw her. So it's tough for me because I really, really, really like this. I really like a 2/3. I like a 2/3 on turn 2. I don't hate a 2/3 on turn 2.
Yeah.
I really like an evasive turn 3 on turn 2. I don't like an uninkable card.
Yep.
But I like this card a lot.
Here's some more stats for you that are probably going to help in your evaluation. Yeah. This is one of the higher sets we've had recently for uninkable count and also for quality uninkables. So you're going to be really tempted in the 4/5 drop especially spot for your uninkables, which... Now, a 2-drop uninkable is less risk than a 4 or 5, but if you really want those 4 or 5s in your deck, adding an additional uninkable can be dangerous. Specifically, for draft, I'm recommending no more than 5, and for sealed, no more than 6 uninkables in your deck, ideally even less. So, using one of your precious uninkable spots, but she's still a 2/3 evasive for 2.
Yeah. I mean, okay, I will put this in like the high C, low B category. Probably high C. The uninkability really hurts. But again, this is one where if you haven't found some of those high cost uninkables, let's say you have space for her in your deck, dropping a 2/3 evasive on turn 2 isn't bad at all. And I really like that stuff.
Quite frankly, if you are in pack 4 and you've only got 1 or 2 other uninkables in your deck, or you're a sealed and you've got a very low uninkability count, I would almost put her up here.
Yeah.
But
I agree.
In a vacuum, I would probably put her maybe even below Squeaks. I don't know, somewhere in this range.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think there's arguments that she's very, very good in your deck. There's arguments that she's not great depending on her uninkability. So I am perfectly fine with her there. I think
in a vacuum, we put her there. But yeah, if you've got the room to fit her in, very good. Just like if you're drafting and it's pack 1, I'm probably passing on Iduna because I just don't want to take the risk that I get clogged for uninkables.
I certainly love Scrooge a lot more as an uninkable for a variety of reasons.
Oh, yeah. Negaduck, Evil Doppelganger, inkable 4/2, 1 lore. Hey, look, it's Liquidator, but better.
Yeah, because he's inkable. With lore. So here's the thing. You start. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that's okay. It sounded like you were going to say them, and I'm like, we'll probably say pretty much the same thing. I traditionally, at a low cost, would rather like a 3/3 than a 4/2, especially if my opponent comes out and plays a 1-cost 2/2, then I feel pretty bad. But at the same time, for a 2-cost, having 4 strength is really nice if your opponent isn't playing that aggressively, and you can, maybe take out their 3-drop or something like that. So it really depends on how your opponent's playing out. I've got this at a C+. I think it's fine, serviceable, but I could even drop it down to a C. I think I would probably take it above Heihei, but somewhere in that range. I would take it above Strike a Good Match and Nala, let me be clear. But in terms of where my systems are at, I would probably take it above Heihei.
That's fair. I won't argue with you. This, again, is in this solid mid-range pool of C cards where, depending on what you need, you take it. So, yeah.
Where would you like to see it? I don't feel that strongly.
I don't know. Below Nala, maybe.
Sure. That's the breaking point.
Yeah, right?
Whether it's above or below Nala.
That's where I'm at.
All right. Go ahead, sir.
Beast, Snowfield Troublemaker. He's a 3/1 inkable with Rush, and whenever this character challenges, if he's at a location, he takes no damage from the challenge. Once again, I'm going to do the thing where it relies on a synergy, and I'm going to ignore the dynamic maneuverability. It could come into play. You could end up drafting 4 or 5 locations, and that could matter a lot. But in isolation, I think generally he's a 3/1 Rush. So here's the thing.
Please don't draft 4 or 5 locations.
You won't?
I said, please don't
Oh yeah,
draft 4 or
please
5
don't. Please don't.
locations.
Don't draft me for this piece. Here's the thing. Like I once.
There is one location in this set I like. I should be
Okay.
clear. But traditionally, I do not like locations in limited. They're much
Tempo
too
killers,
fragile.
yeah.
Yeah.
This is an interesting card to me because because there's not a ton of removal in limited. This effectively to me, like any rush card, generally reads to me
Yep.
pay 2 to do 3 damage. Yes, it doesn't answer ready characters, but in a format where removal comes at a premium, I would pick this up if I didn't have many other removal options. And so I think it is a nice removal tool. It is card neutral because generally you're going to use it and it's going to banish itself, but sometimes that's what you need.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Unless they got a 0/4 down and not
Right.
sweeps.
So
then it's going to banish itself.
this is also in the C range for me, but I like the utility of it as a removal tool quite a bit.
Yeah, I would put it around Negaduck territory in that it's not as strong, but you get the additional, flexibility with it. Again, because we're not worried about the 1-drops as much, this is probably not coming down on turn 2. So you got to think, if it's not coming down turn 2, when is it coming
that's fair.
down? So it's probably not coming down until turn 5, because although there's a lot of 2-drops, as we see here, there's not a lot of great 2-drops. You're probably not going to have a 2-drop on turn 2 and 2-drops on turn 4. So it's probably coming down on turn 5 at the earliest. Or if you go poor on an ink efficiency, it's coming down on turn 3 on its own. But I agree with you on the fact that the fact that characters have to dry is a big deal. When we're racing to the finish line for lore, being able to challenge 1 turn earlier is sometimes worth giving up some stat line. So I've got it around the Negaduck territory, exactly where you are, kind of in that mid-C territory.
Yeah. If you don't have a lot of removal, it's something to consider, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I probably even have it below.
Yeah,
I
probably am too.
Yeah. Somewhere in that range. This should be quick. Force of a Great Typhoon. Inkable action song. Chosen character gets +5 strength this turn. I am all for ink efficiency, but I hate strength buffs that don't come with a card draw or with a character attached to them. I've got to spend a whole card. Yes, I can trade my 2-drop for your 5-drop, but I've traded 2 cards for your 1 card. So even if I've gotten the better of it ink-wise, I'm going to run out of cards before you do, and I don't like that feeling. So sometimes I need it. Desperate times call for desperate measures, but for me that is the categorical D.
Yeah. Yep.
Cool.
Oh, what?
And I almost always have characters first.
What is...
Not always, but almost always, because I would rather just quest for
Right.
lore.
What is that Mulan's rarity, by the way? The one that gets...
She's a super rare.
Okay.
It's not going to come up very often. No. So this is one where, obviously, if you combine those two, and that was kind of the point, I'm assuming, with the 6 lore cap. So this is one where we unfortunately have to read sideways or it comes off the screen. I guess this is your... Sorry, I'm going to make you read sideways.
That's totally fine. I have practice. Scrooge's County House is an inkable 1/4 location with boost 2, one of the first boost locations we've seen, or the first boost location, and says its good business ability says this location gets +1 willpower and +1 lore for each card under it. We could go on and talk about how locations are tempo killers. I don't like paying 2 for a 1/4. In old sets, we paid 1 for a 1/4. I didn't hate those. I didn't love them. Didn't hate them. 2 for 1/4 feels bad, and even if you boost it, like
4 for a 1/4
fine.
too.
I'm generally not super happy to play this card. If it had 5 or 6 willpower, great. I don't know.
I might be willing to put this above the 1 lore characters, because you could count it as a 2 lore character late game maybe, but it's still just ink. So
yeah, it's. I mean, late game you're paying 4 for a 1/5 with 2 lore that your opponent has to answer immediately. So like, I don't know. I don't love it.
Yep. Piglet, Entranced by Snow, Inkable 2/4 1 lore vanilla. I used to say that at early cost I liked the willpower over the strength, so I should like this over Negaduck. But we had Baloo in the last set that was the same stat line, and it played out pretty poorly. It was fine, it was playable, but it didn't play out particularly great. I guess you could argue that in a set with a legendary that heals and draws cards, this could be worthwhile, but let's be honest, that's not happening. So I've got this at a C.
I'll trust your evaluation. I haven't played enough limited recently. I like a 2/4 on 2. Heck, earlier I said I liked a 2/3 on turn 2. So, I'd be silly not to say I like this card, but I trust your evaluation of the middle stat line in this slot.
I've got it below Christopher Robin. Sure. I don't know if you feel strongly about having it above. I'm not that fussed either
I
way.
like 2 lore characters, so yeah.
There you go. See, this is how I can just manipulate you to put it where I want it. I just put it above or below the 2 lore character.
That's fair. There's certain things I'm super passionate about, and I don't know. Oh dear.
2 lore. Hey, you know what? In limited, 2 lore matters. 2 lore is twice as much as 1 lore.
It's double. Darkwing Duck Drake Mallard is a inkable 4/1 with ward for 1 lore, or with 1 lore. Like,
I don't know about your feelings about Ward, so I'd love to hear specifically about your feelings about Ward in limited.
Okay, Ward is a fantastic ability when a character has some sort of static ability that does something. But in this instance, all he's doing is he's going to sit back until you choose to quest or challenge with him. So, like, I'd rather have the extra willpower. I put this below the 4/2s that we've had. It's not doing a lot for me.
Yep. I would have this even below Piglet and probably even below Simba. Ward for me is almost vanilla. It's not exactly vanilla, because there are times where it is relevant. But quite frankly, if my opponent used a removal spell on my 2 cost, I'm not sad about that either. So it might as well be vanilla here. But even in the higher cost, I feel that Ward is mostly vanilla in limited because there's just so little removal. Yeah, don't get me wrong. If Ursula Vanessa last set had Ward, I'd be thrilled. But, it's just so unlikely that Ward ever comes into play in limited.
I would be with you. I am with you. And if this character had a static ability that it's worth sitting back and protecting, then that Ward gives you even a little bit of benefit. But what are you protecting here?
Yeah, again, so it's not no benefit. It's just in most cases it's no benefit. So like on Grandmother Willow, yeah. Would I love it to have Ward? Absolutely. But then everyone and their dog would cry for constructed. But in limited, sure. But it's so what's the word I'm looking for? Not often. Yeah. I'm pretty sure there's another word that I'm looking for. It's so infrequent that someone will have removal that Ward just doesn't come up very often. Speaking of which, Splatter Phoenix, inkable 1/2, 2 lore with Ward and the underdog ability. Can we just safely put this with Fazu and Dinky?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there are rare scenarios where you're playing this on turn 1, and in that case, it's pretty good because as you highlighted, you're not going to see necessarily a lot of 1-drops, and so you're probably going to get a quest out of it. But yeah, it's the same.
I mean, I can put it above. Yeah, I can put it up here.
Yeah, I'm not that passionate about it, but I'll say. Yeah, it's in that 1/2 lore stat line. Yeah.
All right, we got a more interesting card now. I don't know if it's good, but it's at least interesting. Go ahead.
Ooh, Mickey Mouse. Bob Cratchit is a 3/2 inkable. Hard Work says whenever this character quests, put the top card of your deck face down under him. And then Giving Heart says when this character is banished into challenge, you may put all cards that were under him under another chosen character or location of yours. It's not great. Yeah, it's not good. So I don't know. Like, this is another character which, as you talked about earlier, like really benefits from this boost synergy. If you happen to find a couple cards that give you some benefit from your other characters having been boosted, or you have a number of boost cards, you could do something with this. But again, and limited to me, any card and combo pieces are so tricky to play with because you might find 1 or 2 of them that, I don't know. Basically, I would consider this a 3/2 for 2, and yeah. I will say this too. If there were more cards in this set that bounced, if you had cards where you could benefit from the boost, not just from the mechanic, but the ability to perhaps return them to your hand, if Olafs were running around like crazy, I'd be more excited about boost.
Well, there's the 5-drop. There's the 5-drop 4/4 2 lore that you return a character to gain a lore, I believe.
There you go.
And it's uncommon, if I recall correctly.
Okay.
But yeah, it's not running around. Like, that's one card and it's
Yes.
uncommon, right?
If you had that card.
So this is where I feel like in Sealed, this card is easy, right? In Sealed, you got it or you don't, right? You've got the synergies or you don't. And again, you want a density of synergies before you are looking at Bob Cratchit. I'm interested in him, taking a flyer on him in draft. If I take him a little bit higher than I should have in draft, and he only ends up being a 3/2 vanilla, versus say like taking a Piglet. I'm probably still taking Piglet over it, but because it's rare, I'm tempted to take a flyer on Bob Cratchit because I won't see him again. So I don't know. I had him at C just because he intrigues me as far as draft goes, but in Sealed, it's kind of yay or nay. Like,
yeah, there are other stat lines I would rather have on turn 2. I take this card if I've got a bounce card. Like if I find that 4-drop and I find this later on, I'm more than happy to take it. But
can we put him above Drake Mallard there?
Absolutely. I don't care for Drake all that much.
All right. Distract, inkable action. Chosen character gets -2 strength this turn. Draw a card. I liked it in first chapter, and yes, this is the reprint again. I liked it in the first chapter, but I didn't love it again. I love cards that replace themselves. Draw a card, that's great. -2 strength isn't a ton. So again, this is a card that I would almost rather play on turn 7 or something like that, where, my 5/5 running into your 5/5 and mine survives. And I draw a card, and I'm not really messing with my curve. I don't really want to be playing this on turn 2 because I don't have a 1-drop. 3, 4, 5, even 6. I really want to just be dropping a 2, 3, 4, 5 into maybe a 6-drop. So I'm more interested in this kind of mid to late game than I am earlier in the game. So as a result, again, I tend to value cards that I want to play on curve a little bit higher. So I have this as a C.
Yeah. I agree. To me, this is another one. It's in that C range. Depends on what else you have going on. It does replace itself. So thinking about the late game, if you're in 6 ink, you're top decking. It's not a card you hate to draw because you're like, oh, well, I'll just look at the next card.
Yep.
And it's situational. I don't like that it doesn't say until the start of your next turn. It's just this turn, but yeah, it's fine.
I do feel like this effect though is better as a challenging benefit. I like the flexibility, but I think the -2 until the start of your next turn, if we've got a situation where there's 4 characters on the board or something like that, and they're all then I don't know that until the start of your next turn matters all that much, but it does matter. It's not irrelevant.
Sure.
So I like him better than Simba just because I'm trying to play them around the same time. I'm not necessarily trying to play Simba on curve, but I'm fine to make adjustments if you.
No, that's fine. I like, you talk about cards that replace themselves. Anything like 1 or 2 cost that draws you a card on play really kind of makes that slot in your deck feel kind of empty or neutral, and I'm fine with that because it allows you to look for things that you really want.
This card should help us catch up in time.
Yep.
Go ahead.
F, next.
Yeah. So for those listening, wipe out inkable action, put chosen character with bodyguard or item into their inkwell.
Yep.
Such an F.
However, I will shout out Semengalisi Zabaya, a South African artist who has done several great cards all the way back in set 1, and he doesn't do many cards, and I enjoy seeing him get cards anytime he does so. Shout out to Panda.
That's awesome. Yeah. Absolutely. Sadly, he's probably not listening.
Yep.
Hidden Trap, inkable item. This item enters play exerted. Exert to banish this item. Choose 1, banish chosen item, or chosen character gets -2 strength. Can we also put this one in F?
Next.
Okay. Above Wipeout, though. Wipeout's definitely going to be the bottom inkable. Wipeout might as well just say ink. All right. Take us away.
Launchpad, Trusty Sidekick, is an uninkable 2/3. His ability, What Did You Need, allows him to exert to draw your card, then you choose and discard a card, unless you have a character named Darkwing Duck in play. Once again, a synergy card that I'm going to generally ignore because the chances of that coming up are really low. So this basically says draw a card and then discard a card. It's an uninkable 2/3. I like the filter ability kind of, but it's a tempo killer. It's going to get cracked back into. I don't love it. And the uninkability of it really kills it for me.
Yep.
I put him in. I'd probably put it in the D range, to be honest. It's uninkable.
So F.
Okay, there you go. Fine.
If he's a D but uninkable, he's an F.
Yep.
You just save yourself the grief, because again, if it's that bad, like, which isn't to say it's still a character, right? So it's an F, but obviously if you just open the worst pool imaginable, he can go in the deck, but hopefully you just never have to, right? Nani, no worries. Inkable, 1/4, 1 lore. While this character has no damage, she gets +1 lore. So at play, she's a 1/4, 2 lore for 2. Yes, she is, going to have damage on her, but probably she's just going to get banished the first time she's challenged anyway. So, like, she's effectively a 1/4, 2 lore for 2. So, already better than our 1/2s. Already, I would argue, better than Christopher Robin, because the chances of getting him out on 1 are not substantial unless you're hard mulliganing for him, and you just probably shouldn't do that, unless your deck's just really consistently aggressive. So, I'm fine with Nani. I don't, love her, but I would probably put her around Christopher Robin.
Yeah, I like her a lot. Where's Christopher? He's up at...
He's mid of our Cs. He's
I like her a lot.
Almost exactly.
She's a 2 cost 1/4 with 2 lore. And to your point, if you have a scenario where your opponent is devoting resources to put damage on her and not banishing her, you're fine that she's still around with 1 lore. Like, that's a win. So she's not bad, and dropping her on curve is not bad at all. Like if you're taking an aggro line, so I like her.
Dig it. All right. Moving on. Go ahead, sir.
Stitch. We're in the Lilo and Stitch range here. Stitch High Badness level, amped up, says when you have a character named Lilo in play, this character gains Challenger +3, and he is a 3/2 with 1 lore. Again, we have a synergy here. Probably not a ton of Lilos around, and that ability is probably not going to come into play a whole lot. Here's the thing: if he were like a 2/3, with this ability, I would like him a lot better because there's a chance you could benefit from him. But a 3/2 on 2, I don't love. I mean, low CD, like it's.
I've just got him as a vanilla 3/2, so in the Ds. Down with Anna.
Yeah, I tend to, and I think you're the same. Like in certain, I tend to favor the willpower over the strength. I'd like a 2/3 better than a 3/2. I like the durability. So yeah,
I like it to an extent. I don't really like 1/4s all that much, except Nani, for example. It's a 2 willpower, so I like the extra or 2 lore, so I like the extra willpower. Yes, if it gets damaged and not banished, then it's only questing for 1, but then great, right? It ate a challenge and it gets to quest for effectively 3. Great, but usually I like. A balance of willpower with like slightly more willpower than strength. So I like the 2/3s, the 3/4s, the 4/5s, that type of thing. All right, Judy Hopp, Snowball Patrol, Inkable, 2/2, 1 lore with resist +1 and that underdog ability. So realistically, it's a 2 cost, 2/2, resist 1, and just because there's so many, cards floating around that this really isn't going to be relevant for. I just don't think the resist one's going to come up enough. I really liked Francine last set. The 3 cost 4/3 resist one played out really, really well. But that difference in the stat lines is substantial. So I just don't think she's going to be that relevant. I think you might get stuck with her a few times, but I would be taking her around like a D.
Yeah, I agree. There's just a lot of 3 and 4 strength characters running around in the 2 and the 3 slot, and most likely she's going to be challenged into and removed pretty easily. So yeah, not
okay. This is a cute one.
Yeah.
You're up.
Oh man, so Lilo bundled up is a 1/2, and her ability extra layer says during each opponent's turn. The first time this character would take damage, she takes no damage instead. So
specifically, though, uninkable, but also 2 lore. So an uninkable 1/2, 2 lore.
Yeah. I haven't thought about. I've thought about this in Construct. I haven't thought about this in Limited.
She's annoying.
She's annoying, and she's not
but
terrible. So again, I love 2 lore characters. The thing with this on curve is your opponent is required to have 2 answers. So it is required to spend 2 characters to challenge into her, which leaves another one of your characters protected. And on the off chance that they didn't play a 1-drop, and then they played a 2-drop and a 3-drop, it potentially insulates one of your other characters. So she represents, at least probably 4 lore, 5 lore. I like her.
I wouldn't say at least. I would say that there is a chance that she represents 4 lore. Because if you're on the draw, then probably not. But if you're on the play on 2, then almost certainly she represents.
But in that
4
scenario, your opponent your other character is protected, and so she's essentially insulated your other character, which is where I'm getting this. So 3 lore potentially depending. So I mean, I don't.
Yeah. Okay. I get what you're saying.
Yeah. It if you're playing a curve, it protects other characters. I don't hate her, and even in the late game, like if you're in a scenario where you're dropping and trying to close things out, your opponent then has to spend 2 characters to crack into her. So all
of this would be great if she was inkable.
Yeah, you're right.
I still don't think she's an F. Because she's uninkable, she's not going in D for me. I still don't think she's an F. But gosh, the uninkable kills me because, as I mentioned, there's so much tempting uninkables in this set.
If you have space for her in an uninkable slot, she could be very good. I'll put her in C because of her uninkability. I think in the right scenario, though, she's very good.
If she was inkable, I'd probably have her as like a C+.
Yeah, if she was...
But, just because of that on play... Yeah. On play, you're really excited for her, right?
Yeah. If she was inkable, I'd have her even at a low B. But I think.
Okay. So I'm thinking somewhere in this territory here.
But I will say, if you have space for her, based on your uninkable count, I kind of like her.
Yeah. Same as we said for Iduna, right? Like, she goes up a lot if you've got the space for her. She's just problematic if you don't. Keep the ancient ways. Inkable action song. Opponents can't play actions or items until the start of their next turn. This goes down with wipeout.
F. Next.
Gosh, I wish I didn't have to scroll down every time. All right, this one's better. Go ahead.
Oh dear. This is a 2-cost action. The terror that flaps in the night says deal 2 damage to chosen opposing character. If you have a character named Darkwing Duck in play, deal 3 damage instead.
So deal 2
damage. Yep. So, in Limited, removal comes at a premium. Fire the Cannons, for me, is like an instant play. It's an unkable 1 cost. Is instant take. I love cards like Fire the Cannons. It is a 1 cost, but it is an unkable. Here you have an inkable deal 2 damage card. The problem for me, again, is in isolation. I haven't reviewed this whole set, but I'm generally always taking instant damage. So...
I've got a few notes in my various things that says the only thing that deals with this is the terror that flaps in the night.
Yeah.
So I've got this as a B-.
Yeah, I'll put it up there. Removal is at such a premium in Limited. Any card that says, any action to me, for the most part, that says deal 1 damage. Even Mosquito Bite. Like, I liked Mosquito Bite in Limited, and that was deal 1 damage for 1, or place a damage counter. But, I don't know. I like it.
Yeah. I refuse to give time for containment unit. It is the hardest of Fs. You will sabotage your game playing this card.
Okay.
So
is that it?
It's the one that makes you keep discarding.
Oh yeah.
It isolates the character, but you have to discard every turn.
Is that it? Did we do it?
All right. There's our list.
Oh god, it's just so long. Sorry.
It's under 2 hours.
It was so long.
We were aiming for an hour, but that might have been ambitious, given the 2 of us.
Oh yeah, a lot of cards. So we have a single A. We've got that 1 card which we were on the fence about, but it's that Scrooge McDuck. Are you happy with that?
I can be happy with that. Absolutely. Yep. No, I think this is kind of where I like to see it visually as well. Like, how's the balance amongst the various? Because there should be kind of a distinct bell curve. From A to D or F, right? So, I'm happy with it. Yeah. What about you? Any changes that you're seeing that you want to make before we call it a day?
No, I think I'm fairly happy with where everything's placed. The one thing I will emphasize again, and you heard us say this like 5 or 6 times, in that C range. There are cards that we've ranked them in a certain order, and there are cards that are better or worse depending on what the needs of your individual deck are. And so, depending on what the rest of your pool is like, there are cards in that C range which I would slide way up or way down depending on what I needed in specific scenarios. But I am happy with everything that's in the B tier. I'm actually, even though we waffle on a little bit, I'm really happy with Scrooge McDuck in an A. The more I thought about it, in the later game, he's a 3-cost 4/4, which is great. And then next turn, he's a 5/5, and next turn 6. So I'm happy with that where it is. And this is a ton of fun. I'm interested to see what the viewers think.
Love it. Yes, get down in the comments. But before we wrap things up, we got to let them know where to find you, because obviously nobody knows who you are. But for the one person that's been in a cave for the last 3 years, can you tell them where to find you?
You're way, way, way too kind. I am at, so my wife and I make content on various social media platforms. You can find us on most social media platforms at Illumineers, that's Illumineer with a T, except on Instagram, where we are the Illumineers. And the best place to find us is on Monday nights at 8 p.m. Central, almost every single week. We do a live show for about an hour and a half where we talk about the latest going-ons in the world of Lorcana. We talk about all things Lorcana, so come by and watch our show. We'd love to see you there.
And lately on YouTube, I believe the most recent thing I watched, other than Monday's show, was you having a very emotional time rewatching Fox and the Hound.
Yes, that happened.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much, Liam. Thank you all for sticking around this long. If you have stuck around this long, make sure you give yourself a shout out in the comments, a pat on the back. But join us tomorrow for our 3-drop video. Thank you all so much for your constant support, for your love of Limited, for sharing that out. This is the year. I feel like 2026 is the year where we're going to see some major shifts for Limited. The best is yet to come. Looking forward to it. See you next time. Bye, everybody.